one of baseball's top insiders, just gave an interesting interview that points exactly where the Dodgers are headed in their next big move in free agency. And I'm here to tell you all about it in this edition of Dodgers Digest. Hey, this is Mike Nelson. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I want to thank the 21% of the ones who are watching these videos who've already hit the sub button, but 78% of you have not subscribed yet. Myself, Brad J, we're bringing you everyday Dodger content. We're bringing you the real Dodger news here. True blue. You're not going to find content like this anywhere else. We're the best Dodger channel out there, so make sure to hit the sub button. We've gotten over 6,000 subscribers. Let's make it 7,000 by New Year's Day. Only you can help us out. Let's get right into it. Ken Rosenthal. That's right, Ken Rosenthal, the guy with the bow ties on Fox. Well, you always remember the bow ties, right? Anyway, he recently gave an interview to a pretty well-known person here in with the Dodgers. Of course, Alana Rizzo, former Dodger reporter. Ken Rosenthal mentioned, I expect the Dodgers to get one of Tanner Scott or Devin Williams. Of course, this was on the Foul Territory podcast that Alana Rizzo is doing these days. But anyway, that's pretty big news. The Dodgers, of course, are in the market for another relief pitcher, right? I mean, that's been well reported. But now Ken Rosenthal is kind of, signifying that he's expecting one of these two things to happen. Now, let's get into these two things, right? Because they're two completely different scenarios. One, Tanner Scott is a free agent. Tanner Scott is a free agent. Of course, you got to remember he was traded to the San Diego Padres last year. He finished out the year with them. Of course, came up short against our Dodgers. They were kind of building up a team to try to win the World Series. It didn't work out. So Tanner Scott is still a free agent. He's been one of the best relievers in the last couple years, I would say, especially last year, right? One of the best relievers in the entire Major League Baseball. And for the Dodgers to be interested in a player like that could be, absolutely groundbreaking, right? They're able to sign Tanner Scott already, to a team that has a really good bullpen. I mean, comment below. What do you guys think? Do you think this Dodgers bullpen is the best in Major League Baseball? I mean, I think it is. I think last year they proved it, that the Dodgers have the best bullpen in baseball. And that simply has to do with the fact that they were able to win a World Series around this bullpen, right? The Dodgers didn't have much starting pitching in the playoffs. They were really debilitated by injuries going into the playoffs, and it showed, right? The Dodgers struggled at times in terms of the pitching. Who was there to step it up when things went south? Who was there in Game 4 of the NLDS when the Dodgers had their backs against the wall, down 2-1 against the San Diego Padres? Who was there? It was the Dodgers bullpen. The Dodgers bullpen was there to step it up and to basically carry the team when things were not, when things were in a bad situation, when things were going south. The bullpen was there to kind of really stabilize things, right? So the Dodgers proved that they had the best bullpen in baseball. Comment below if you guys agree with me or not. And they're trying to make the bullpen even better than it already is by going out and getting a player like Tanner Scott, right? And Tanner Scott is a quick and easy free agent signing. Basically, it's just a matter of Tanner Scott wanting to come to the Dodgers, right? I mean, I'm sure the Dodgers will pay him anything he wants, of course, under the whatever his market value is. They're not going to give him, $50 million a year, but I'm sure the Dodgers can afford whatever amount Tanner Scott is asking, 10, 15, whatever, to $20 million. $20 million does seem like a bit much, but let's say $10, $15 million a year, which is what Tanner Scott would probably be getting, considering he's one of the best relievers in baseball. I'm sure the Dodgers can do that. It's just a question of whether Tanner Scott wants to come to LA. Does he want to be part of a winning team, part of a winning culture, the team that just won the World Series? I mean, I personally think that he would consider the Dodgers. Of course, it has to do a lot with, all that with the contract length and different factors that I'm sure are being discussed at this time. But if you ask me personally, of course, Ken Rosenthal mentioned two names here on the podcast, on the Foul Territory podcast. He mentioned Tanner Scott, and then he also mentioned another name in Devin Williams. Now, I personally think that the Dodgers are going to go after Tanner Scott first, right? I think they're going to go all in to try to sign Tanner Scott. And if they come up short, go somewhere else. Obviously, he's going to sign with somebody. Probably not San Diego. Maybe San Diego, but it hasn't really looked like there's much going on there. So he's probably out of the San Diego if he leaves and he goes somewhere else. The Dodgers now have a plan B, and that's Devin Williams, right? Like we've talked about on the show before, Devin Williams has been in the rumor mill for the Dodgers now the last couple weeks. The Brewers are probably going to trade him. Brewers, of course, already lost Willie Adames, and now it looks like they are going to lose their top reliever. So definitely we've seen this before from the Milwaukee Brewers kind of doing their fire sale every so often, and that's what's going on right now. So the Dodgers trading for Devin Williams. Well, they're going to have to trade for this guy, right? I mean, they are not going to be able to sign him. He is not a free agent. And I think that's where things get a bit complicated. And the question is, what are they giving up? Well, I think Gavin Lux has to be on his way out if that happens. Because, it has to be Gavin Lux, right? I mean, Gavin Lux is the player that I think is going to get less playing time now. With Tommy Edman kind of getting a everyday spot now, getting a big contract and kind of earning that through his play last year in the playoffs. And then Mookie Betts switching back to the outfield switching back from the outfield back to the infield now, going to the infield again on a regular basis. That's going to put the playing time for Gavin Lux on, it's going to limit what Gavin Lux can do, limit his time in the lineup, right? So the question is now, I think Gavin Lux is the prime suspect to get traded if they decide to go after Devin Williams. And I'm sure the Brewers would love to have Gavin Lux, right? I mean, they just lost Willie Adames. They would be more than happy to take in an infielder that we know is a pretty solid hitter. I mean, sure, he's had some rough spots. But there's more questions on his fielding, right? I mean, that's been a big issue for Gavin Lux. I mean, the guy was supposed to be the everyday shortstop for the Dodgers when Corey Seager left for the Rangers, and it just never happened. Be honest. It never happened. Just being honest, keeping it real here. It never happened with Gavin Lux. Sure, he's had his moments. He's been important at times, but he's never been the player that I think the Dodgers really envisioned. He's been with the Dodgers organization his whole career, came up through it, but I think this is the best time to trade him before his value gets worse, before he has let's say he has a bad year next year. It's going to be really hard to trade him after next year. So I think this is a great time to trade him. He's still seen as a valuable player, and the Dodgers will get a pretty good reliever in return in Devin Williams. We'll have to wait and see what happens, and I'm sure Ken Rosenthal is correct. Comment below if you think I'm wrong. The Dodgers are going to get one of these two guys, Tanner Scott or Devin Williams. One of these two guys are going to be wearing Dodger blue next year. As always, make sure to subscribe, and let's go Dodgers. Woo!